Have you ever met someone and felt an instant connection? That mysterious pull that seems to defy explanation? Or maybe you've wondered why certain people are drawn to you, almost as if they can't help themselves. What if I told you that these powerful attractions aren't random at all? That there's a hidden psychological blueprint behind who we fall for and why they fall for us? According to Carl Jung, one of the most revolutionary minds in psychology, people fall in love with you for two profound reasons, and neither of them has much to do with your appearance, your achievements, or even your personality. At least not in the way you might think. In today's video, we're going to explore Jung's fascinating theory about love and attraction. We'll uncover the unconscious forces that draw people to you and why understanding these forces could completely transform your relationships. By the end, you'll have a deeper understanding of not just why others are attracted to you, but why you're drawn to certain people as well. Before we dive into the two specific reasons, let's understand how Jung viewed love in the first place. Jung believed that love isn't the random, chaotic force we often assume it is. Instead, it follows a deeper pattern, one orchestrated by our unconscious mind. What feels like spontaneous attraction is actually your psyche, following an invisible script written long before you met that person. This isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who fits into your psychological puzzle in a very specific way. And this brings us to the first reason people fall in love with you. You represent what they've lost or never developed. Jung observed that we're often magnetically drawn to people who embody qualities we've pushed into the shadows of our own personality. Imagine someone who grew up in an environment where they learned to be logical, practical, and emotionally reserved. They've spent years suppressing their creative, spontaneous, emotional side. Then they meet you. Someone who freely expresses emotions, follows intuition, and embraces uncertainty with ease. The attraction they feel isn't just admiration, it's recognition. In you, they see a living embodiment of everything they've denied in themselves. It's as if their unconscious whispers, "There it is, the missing piece of me." This explains why the serious, structured accountant falls for the free-spirited artist, or why the cautious, responsible person becomes fascinated by someone who takes risks. These aren't just preferences. They're psychological compensations. What's really happening is projection. Your admirer is seeing parts of their own potential reflected in you. But here's the danger. They're not actually seeing you. They're seeing an idealized image projected onto you, and this is where many relationships begin to falter. When someone loves you for embodying what they lack, the initial attraction is powerful. But as your full humanity emerges, with all your flaws and contradictions, the projection can't sustain itself. The perfect image cracks, and disillusionment follows. This doesn't mean the attraction wasn't real. It was very real, but it was based on an unconscious need for psychological completion rather than seeing and accepting you fully as you are. Reason number 2, you activate their inner ideal. The second reason people fall in love with you goes even deeper into the architecture of the human psyche. Jung proposed that we all carry within us powerful archetypal images of the masculine and feminine. For men, this inner feminine image is called the anima. For women, the inner masculine is the animus. These aren't just stereotypes. They're complex psychological patterns shaped by our earliest relationships, cultural influences, and something Jung called the collective unconscious. These inner images act like emotional magnets. When we meet someone who resembles our inner ideal, not necessarily in looks, but in essence, the attraction can be overwhelming. It feels like recognition, like destiny, like we've known this person forever. This explains those powerful love at first sight experiences. You might have just met, but to their unconscious mind, they've known you all their life. What they're really recognizing is how closely you match an image they've carried within themselves for years. The feeling is intoxicating because it's not just attraction, it's a kind of homecoming. Their psyche is saying, "Finally, here is the embodiment of what I've been searching for." But again, this creates a problem. No real human can live up to an archetypal ideal forever. You might temporarily seem to perfectly match their inner image, but eventually the differences between you and their idealized image become apparent. This is often when the honeymoon phase ends and real relationship work begins. The person who once seemed perfect now seems frustratingly human. The connection that felt destined now requires effort. And many relationships end at this point, not because the love wasn't real, but because it was built on an unconscious fantasy rather than conscious acceptance of a real person. Jung didn't see these unconscious attractions as problems to be avoided. Instead, he viewed them as opportunities for profound personal growth. Every relationship becomes a mirror showing us parts of ourselves we couldn't see otherwise. When someone falls in love with you, they're not just experiencing pleasure, they're encountering their own soul. You become the catalyst for their psychological evolution. You awaken what's dormant in them, challenge what's rigid, and illuminate what's hidden. And the same is true for you. The people you're drawn to aren't random. They're carrying something your psyche needs to encounter. They represent the next chapter in your journey of becoming whole. This is why certain relationships feel so transformative. They're not just pleasant connections, they're psychological initiations. They break you open, revealing aspects of yourself you never knew existed. Even painful relationships serve this purpose, sometimes especially those. Understanding these two reasons people fall in love with you reveals something profound about human connection. Love is never just about the other person. It's always partly about the self-seeking completion. This doesn't mean love isn't real. It means love is more complex than we typically imagine. It operates on multiple levels simultaneously: conscious and unconscious, personal and archetypal, present and past. When someone falls for you because you embody what they lack, they're not just appreciating your qualities. They're encountering their own potential through you. You become a living symbol of what they could be if they integrated those denied aspects of themselves. When someone falls for you because you match their inner ideal, they're experiencing a profound psychological recognition. You're activating a template that's been dormant within them, often formed in childhood and shaped by their deepest hopes and fears about relationship. In both cases, the attraction isn't arbitrary. It's psychologically precise, following patterns laid down years before you met. This explains why we often find ourselves drawn to similar types again and again. Our unconscious is trying to complete unfinished business, to heal old wounds, to integrate split-off parts of ourselves. Before we continue exploring how these unconscious forces shape our relationships, I want to take a moment to invite you to join our community. If you're finding value in this psychological perspective on relationships, please consider subscribing to our channel. We post new videos every week diving into the hidden patterns that shape our lives, relationships, and inner worlds. Now, let's return to Jung's perspective on love, because there's something crucial we need to understand. The challenge in relationships isn't to avoid these psychological dynamics. That's impossible. The challenge is to become conscious of them, to recognize when we're projecting and when we're seeing clearly. When someone falls in love with you, they're initially seeing you through the lens of their own psychological needs. But true love begins when they can see beyond the projection, when they can recognize you as a separate person with your own unique essence. This shift from projected love to conscious love doesn't happen automatically. It requires awareness, vulnerability, and willingness to face one's own incompleteness without making the other person responsible for filling the gaps. The most fulfilling relationships happen when both people understand these dynamics. When we can say, "I know I'm projecting my needs onto you, and I'm working to own those parts of myself instead of expecting you to carry them for me." So, What does all this mean for your relationships? How can understanding Jung's 2 reasons change how you experience connection? First, it invites you to look beyond the surface of attraction. When you feel that powerful pull towards someone, ask yourself, what qualities do they embody that I've denied in myself? What inner image might they be activating? Second, it helps you understand why relationships that start with intense attraction often hit turbulence. The initial magic isn't sustainable because it's partly built on projection. The real relationship can only begin when the projections start to dissolve. Third, it transforms how you experience being loved. When someone is drawn to you, you can recognize that they're seeing something real in you, but they're also seeing themselves reflected back. This doesn't diminish their love. It helps you understand its complexity. Finally, it reveals that every significant relationship is an opportunity for growth. Each person who strongly affects you, positively or negatively, is showing you something about yourself that needs attention. Jung believed that none of this is accidental. The people we meet, especially those who stir us deeply, appear in our lives at precisely the right moment for our psychological development. When someone falls in love with you, they're not just seeking pleasure or companionship. At a deeper level, they're seeking wholeness, and you have become the mirror in which they can see their own completeness reflected back. This doesn't mean you're responsible for their growth or healing. It means there's something sacred in the attraction itself, something that points beyond the two of you toward a larger process of human development. So the next time someone falls in love with you, or you fall in love with them, remember that there's more happening than meets the eye. Beneath the chemistry and compatibility lies a profound psychological drama, one that's been unfolding in the human psyche for thousands of years. Understanding these dynamics doesn't diminish the magic of connection. It deepens it, adding layers of meaning to what might otherwise seem like simple preference or chance. Love isn't random. It's a precisely calibrated instrument of the psyche, drawing us toward the experiences and people we need to encounter on our journey to becoming whole. So when someone falls in love with you, remember, they're falling in love with what you represent to their unconscious mind, either the qualities they've lost touch with or the embodiment of an inner ideal they've carried for years. And in that falling, both of you have an opportunity to wake up to yourselves in a way that wasn't possible before. This is the gift of love, seen through Jung's eyes. Not just pleasure, not just connection, but a pathway to becoming more fully ourselves. And perhaps that's why, despite all its challenges and disappointments, we keep returning to it again and again. Not just because it feels good, but because it makes us more whole. If this perspective resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. How have you experienced these dynamics in your own relationships? And remember, understanding why people love you is the first step to creating deeper, more authentic connections that transform not just your relationships, but your understanding of yourself.